The Leafs have a massive decision to make coming up here very shortly. We still don't have an answer on what's going to happen with Nick Robertson, and it sounds like the Leafs are going to be signing Max Pacioretty or another veteran left wing. So it's going to be very interesting. We're going to break it all down on the stream and have some fun. But first order of business, obviously, Nick is not here. So just wanted to address that right off the bat. But we're going to try our best to have some fun on this stream with some lineup stuff. I have my personal lines that I think would start game one of the season. So we'll break that down, have some fun with that. And welcome in, Landshark. Nice to see everybody here. Thanks for the comments, everybody. And I want to get everyone's opinion too, because it's a hot topic of discussion heading into this season. You know, who's going to start on the third line, right? Who's going to start on defense? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun to start the season here. But before we get into all of that, I just want to. What's up, Jose? How are you? Before we get into all of that, I have not yet on stream, and I guess we haven't addressed it outside of one video last week. I wanted to just take a moment to again acknowledge the untimely passing of Matthew and Johnny Gaudreaus, and just acknowledge their impact on the hockey community and what I've seen in the last week. I've honestly been really touched by what I've seen, and people leaving their hockey sticks out on their front doorsteps, much like what happened with the Humboldt Broncos. So to see all of that was really touching in the last week. And I just wanted to acknowledge it once again, just because of their impact in the hockey community, right? And what we've seen in the last week. And I feel like I'm rambling a little bit here, but just wanted to take a moment once again. They will be missed, and I'm very excited to see how the Calgary Flames and the Columbus Blue Jackets both honor him this season. It's going to be really touching. So obviously, we have to make a hard right turn here and pivot and get to something else. And we'll get into some lineup stuff, and obviously Nick Robertson. I'll try my best to get to the chat because it's just me today. Obviously, Nick is not here. But yeah, Nick Robertson, we'll start with that. What is going to happen? And thank you, Aiden, for asking the question. What is the deadline for something to happen here? There is no deadline per se. If he does not sign a contract by, barring the Leafs not trading him, if he does not sign a contract by, I believe it's December 1st, we saw it with Nylander as an RFA, he'll lose the entire season. He won't be able to play this season, right? So I think it's in his best interest to sign a contract because it makes him easier to trade anyway, right? Like even if he doesn't want to play here. But at the same time, he should want to sign a contract and play here. Like, we all knew at some point it was going to kind of open up for this player in terms of lineup and roster spots. We always knew it was going to open up for this player at some point, like down the road, like a couple of years. And it finally has this year, and now he doesn't want to sign a contract and play. It blows my mind, honestly. I think this is the best opportunity he's ever had as the Toronto Maple Leaf to. I honestly think he can beat out anybody for that left wing position, that first line left wing position, if he cleans up his defensive game in neutral zone. I think he can honestly, like, his offensive upside, I think, is a little bit better than Matthew Nyes at this point in time. Definitely better than McMahon, even though what we saw in the second half of last year was unreal from McMahon. I think he's going to have a big year again this year. So, I think the Leafs are getting ready because of all the news we've seen with Max Pacioretty as well. And like, I'll get into some stuff here. For example, what we've seen, like, there are tons of articles coming out right now, and take some things with a grain of salt. Some of them are rumors regarding what team he's going to, because it's been pretty quiet on that side of things, because I'm not sure Brad Treliving wants to shop this player necessarily. I think he wants to keep him as a Toronto Maple Leaf, obviously, and he talked about that in the end of the season, right? So, but there is a ton of articles here, just highlighting a bunch of stuff. So, there's this too about Steven Lorentz, who they just signed as well this past Monday. I guess they signed him yesterday, or no, you know what? The long weekend is messing with me. They signed him yesterday, and about him kind of equaling him in points, but that was a fun laugh. And he's pretty equal with Nyes as well, which I thought was pretty interesting. So I think he can beat out anybody in terms of that spot. But, there's a lot of trade rumors, all that stuff. I keep saying, hey, what's going on, Shane? What's up, Landshark? Not sure if Nick fits into Berube's system. Too small and injured all the time. I'd trade him for sure. I think, that's a fair opinion. And honestly, like, when I say I would do a certain thing over another, it's just my opinion at the end of the day. I don't know what exactly they're going to do at this point in time. I have a hunch as to what's going to happen, but yeah, I don't think they should trade him. I feel like there's a lot of upside there for that player still, honestly. But and I don't think he's worth a lot on the market right now. That's the other thing. I feel like the Leafs are going to lose this trade. Not that they would ever win it in any scenario, but I feel like they're absolutely going to lose it. But at the end of the day, again, I don't want to backtrack on what I've been saying the last week or two. You know, if he doesn't sign by the start of the season, I mean, you got to make a move, I think, because if you're the Leafs, you got to get something in return that can play in the NHL. And we'll get into lineup decisions in a minute because I have what I think my lines are going to be. What's up, Brian? I have what I think the lineup's going to be on opening night, and it includes a couple guys that won't be there past November, right? So I'll just tease that right there, and they're going to need somebody to fill in those spots past November. And if Nick Robertson doesn't want to play, it's going to be interesting. So they're also rumored, and I brought this up really briefly just a couple minutes ago, to sign Max Pacioretty. I talked about it in a video yesterday with Nick. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't. And I've seen mixed reactions. I've seen everybody in the comments. I've seen your comments, guys. And I've seen it on Twitter. It's 50-50, honestly. A lot of people say that they should. A lot of people are like, don't sign that dinosaur. I've seen those as well. I think he can be useful for the Leafs, but I don't think they should sign him. I don't want to use the term a waste of time, but if he ends up getting hurt, you're going to have to go find something anyway to fill in that spot. I don't know. So it's going to be interesting. And see, Landshark, you bring up a good point too, because I think there's a bigger trade in the works here, and that's why it's taking so long, right? I think that David Kampf is on the move too. I honestly think that the team feels, and when I say the team management group, feels like they're handicapped with that contract on the books right now, because he makes way too much for a fourth line center in this league at this point, right? Like the whole dynamic of the team and who makes what. He makes far too much money for what he does, and they can find somebody else to do that. From the Marlies, they've had a really tough time in the last couple of years. Kyle Dubas talked about it years ago, where he said nobody's coming up and grasping this opportunity that's in front of them. Nobody's coming up and wowing, except for Holmberg, I think, in the last couple of years. But there's a lot still up in the air. It's going to be interesting. And who's left to fill the hole at left wing, I'm not sure. I feel like it could possibly be a Marley. Maybe it's Alex Steves, right? To start the season, I think I know who it is. Maybe not necessarily left wing, but I'll show you guys my lineup in a minute. But it's going to be interesting to start the year. And I know, Shane, last week you mentioned spreading out the core four, I guess, maybe not including Tavares, but spreading out the lines. Kind of agree with that. Not sure if Berube is going to do that, but kind of agree with that because I feel like they'd match up better against other teams. So it's going to be interesting. The one thing lost in all of this is that the goaltending, I think, is set until something happens in season. If something happens in season, then they'll have to address it. But going forward, goaltending is set. And I feel like it hasn't been that way in maybe a little while. Maybe we felt that way last year, but wasn't necessarily the case, obviously, with Samsonov. But goaltending, I feel like, is solidified, and I feel like Stolarz is actually going to surprise a lot of people. We'll have a video on that later in the week. Stolarz is, I'm liking what I see so far, and sorry, not the goaltending, the defensive core. We'll get to it in a second too. I feel like it's close to done. I'm not sure what's happening with Liljegren there. I still feel like, they signed him to that deal so it would be easier to move him. Like, I feel like he's not in Treliving's plans, honestly, unless he comes out and really surprises this year, because I've mentioned it on stream. I haven't liked what I've seen from him the last couple of years. Like, I feel like he should be better and taking more strides in certain areas, especially his physical game. But I feel like that injury really had something to do with that last year. I hope we might find out this year that maybe it didn't, right? And that's just what he is. But yeah. Spezza, I thought, was great too. That's a great point. I thought Spezza was good. Like, just signing old guys isn't a bad thing per se. Spezza, I thought, was a good signing. It didn't work out. He didn't end up winning a cup here. They actually didn't even make it past the first round with him, right? As a player, he was in the booth, right? He was in the suite as an executive. But the Marleau one obviously didn't work out either. So I'm kind of sick and tired, as well as like the Joe Thornton experiment and all that stuff. It doesn't really work. But if he's still an effective player, I feel like Max Pacioretty can come in and be an effective player if he stays healthy. But that's been a question mark the last couple of years. So why would you put all your eggs in one basket in that way? So interesting. But lots to get to. The other thing I wanted to point out this too. A lot of people I've seen the comments. Okay, I've seen all your comments. I've seen it online. A lot of people I think are maybe undervaluing. I don't know what the word is. Nick Robertson. I want to get to that. His stats. All right, he only played 56 games last year, and it was his first season where he was relatively injured. We've seen past seasons where he was not healthy at all. He went out with that shoulder injury a couple years ago. He's missed significant time in his professional career, but he was in Keefe's doghouse all year. All year. Anytime he made the slightest mistake, he was stapled to that bench after. And he still put up 27 points in 56 games, being stapled to the bench every time he turned it over by accident, right? Well, obviously it's by accident. He's not passing to the other team. But he's still relatively young. He's 23, right? And I feel like he hasn't been given an opportunity in the NHL to kind of like, you got to be able to make mistakes. Like Auston Matthews makes mistakes, right? But obviously, very high reward on the other end. Obviously with Auston Matthews, that's a crazy comparison, I guess. But I feel like he needs a little bit of a better opportunity playing with more offensively gifted players because that's his game. And I feel like if they work with him and if he wants to work with them to clean up his defensive game and his neutral zone play, he can be a really good player in the NHL. I really believe that. And his playoff stats, I don't have them on hand. In terms of Nick Robertson, didn't do much. He should have scored a goal. I can't remember what game it was. It might have been game 5. They won anyway. Should have scored a goal there. He was robbed by Swayman. Maybe it was Allmark in game 2. Can't remember what game that was. I just remember him getting robbed, glove hand. But it wasn't great. But I don't think he looked bad or out of place. That was the other thing I was worried about in the playoffs when Bobby McMahon came out because I was excited to watch McMahon in the playoffs because he is a playoff performer. I feel like he would be really good in the playoffs, the way he uses his body and how he's physical like that. But Robertson came in, and I feel like he wasn't necessarily out of place. The Leafs were still missing something as a team. Obviously Nylander and Matthews for half the series. But, it's going to be an interesting situation. But, no, he didn't have great playoff stats. He was kind of just thrown in there because he had to because someone was injured, right? And I feel like that's another problem the Leafs have. Guys are just moving their way around the lineup, just crazy stuff, right? So, now, here's the thing with the Leafs too, Shane, that I think is very interesting. We're calling these third lines, second lines, first line, right? Like the Leafs, the way it should be, like they shouldn't have a first or second line. Like they have so much talent that, well, obviously Matthews is on your first line, I guess, but like they have so much talent that you can't really look at it that way, right? Like all these guys play in so many different situations. But it's interesting that you think Nye should be on the first line. It's going to be fun. Now, okay, I'm going to show you guys. Let's get the conversation rolling. I want to show you guys my season starting lineup, which would be this is game 1 against the Montreal Canadiens. Okay, this is what I'm saying. So, and please excuse my graphic design work, which I did in 5 minutes. Okay, please excuse it. So, we'll start here, and I'll make it bigger for you guys to see. These are my lines for game 1 of the season, and this is me assuming that they don't sign Max Pacioretty at this point in time, which could still happen. And again, this is a way too early prediction. They don't sign Max Pacioretty, and they traded David Kampf and possibly Nick Robertson, or he's just not playing, right? Or he just hasn't signed, right? I think Domi and Matthews have to play the entire year together. I don't care. I have no time for this at this point. They have to play the entire year together. I hate the way Auston Matthews plays with Mitch Marner. Let me explain, okay? It's not that Mitch Marner's a bad player, and I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to dump on him or anything like that. And they're great together, right? They're great. They'll put up, during the regular season, they put up so many points, right, together and nice passing plays. I hate the way Matthews plays with Mitch Marner. And Jose, thank you for the $10. Hold on. Thank you so much. Let me hit this. Let me get the super chat going for you here. Yeah. Leafs will get it done. Go Tree. You know what? I have some more confidence in Brad Treliving the last little while. I have to be honest. I have been. My confidence in him has been going up. So I like what he's been doing. He's very transparent too. I have to say I really like what he's been doing, honestly. But I hope he doesn't give me a reason to change my mind. But anyway, thank you, Jose. Me and Nick, or Nick and I, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now, back to the lineup. I'm glad you kind of like them. Shane. And I'll get to the comments in a second. Again, it's only me today, so I'm trying to go back and forth. But like I was saying, I don't like the way Austin Matthews plays with Mitch Marner. I feel like with Mitch Marner, he's softer on the puck. They're just trying to make plays together. When I watched Matthews play with Bertuzzi and Domi, he played like he was taller, like he was bigger, like he had no fear. He was in on the forecheck. They were creating space for him, right? And he was able to get more opportunities in that way. I love the way that Domi plays with Matthews. He's an underrated playmaker. I'm not saying he's a better playmaker than, Mitch Marner, but I think he's an underrated playmaker. Now, to start the season, Easton Cowan, who is a right wing in the OHL, let's just have some fun. It's the start of the season. He's going to play his 9 games. Let's throw him on the first line right wing. He's got to play with skilled players. This player cannot come in for his 9 games and play on the fourth line. I'm having none of that. It doesn't make sense. This is not NHL 24, okay? This is not your GM mode, franchise mode, okay? It doesn't make sense. So he's got to play with some skilled players. Have some fun with it. Let him fly around, do his thing, play on the first line right wing with Matthews and Domi, and then he'll eventually get sent down to the OHL again, because I don't think it's time for him in the NHL yet. I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's going to light up the OHL again. He's going to be the best player there, but it's not his time yet. To move on to line 2, I like the way McMahon, Tavares, and Nylander were kind of vibing out there at the end of last season before they were kind of split up and Marner got that spot. And I think the reason I have these lines this way, like Marner might move up to that second line, and maybe you put Nylander on the first line. When Cowan gets sent back, you rejig it. But again, this is game 1 of the season. I'm just playing around with it. But I like the vibe of that second line. I do. Hardworking line, I feel like. So they'll definitely create some chances, and Nylander's going to drive play on that line. Nye, nothing against him. A lot of people have him on their first line. I don't think he had the greatest campaign last year. I'm going to be honest. He's got to take a step for me. I still think he's a great player and a playoff performer, and the way he uses his physicality in the playoffs is great. But he's got to take a step. Maybe he starts on the third line. They're going to give Fraser Minten a shot to start the year, I believe, and he'll slot in there perfectly at third line center. I feel like that's kind of what he's going to top out as anyway, but a really good third line center, a really useful player. Put him with Mitch Marner. They'll create some magic. I like Marner and Nyes. I like that. Yeah, exactly. Shane Cowan has to get top 6 minutes if he's playing those 9 games. It makes no sense for him to play 6 minutes on the fourth line. It makes no sense for Easton Cowan to be up for 9 games and play with Ryan Reeves and Holmberg or Kampf if they keep him. That makes no sense. What is he going to do? He's not going to do anything. So from Wesley too, Domi protects Matthews, and Cowan Nyes looks out a bit for Marner, which he needs. I think you need some more size with Marner probably, which McMahon was helping with, and Nyes does that on that line. And I think, like you said, not necessarily protects him. I just like the way Matthews plays with Domi, and when he was playing with Bertuzzi last year, better than when he plays with Marner. He just seems like he's on a mission, right? I feel like it. Anyway, that's just what I was seeing. Third line, again, Marner's on there. I'm also assuming Yarncroke obviously is still on the team. Maybe he gets scratched for a couple of these guys, and then he heads back into the lineup as some of these guys either get sent down to the Marlies. There's also Grebyankin, who I'm a big fan of. Not sure he's going to make the team, honestly, but he can work his way into the lineup if there's injuries throughout the year. And, towards the end of the season, the team never looks like it does on opening night anyway towards the end of the year. Then fourth line, I love Connor Dewar. I love what he brought to the team last year. I'm glad they re-signed him. He'll be on the fourth line. Pontus Holmberg, I think, is the fourth line center. I love him in that role, even if he's a third line center, although I would love some more offense from the third line. Maybe Holmberg can surprise me in that way this year. Haven't seen it from him yet. And Reeves has to be in the lineup. He's going to be there. He's going to fight in the first game. We're all going to love it, right? And he's going to be there. Probably won't play the entire season, of course, but yes, I think that's kind of what the lineup will look like this year, at least to start the year. This is game 1. I don't think it, We'll see how it shakes out. Obviously, like I said, the lineup never looks like it does when you start the year at the end of the year. If you look at the team from that was in that game 1 where Matthew scored the hat trick against the Montreal Canadiens, and the team that finished the year, very different team and very different lines. Never stays the same. So Alex Nylander might just be the Leafs' most unrated, I assume you mean underrated, signing this offseason. I love that signing. The only reason I haven't been talking about Alex Nylander in our videos and last week when we were talking about lineups is he's signed to an AHL contract. So I feel like it's a waste of time at this point to put him in these mock lineups because he won't be in them to start the year. And he might never be, and that's fine, right? He'll be in the AHL with the Marlies. but I think he still has potential to fight. Like if there's injuries, I think there's potential that he ends up earning that contract that he can then play with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and an opportunity where he can play on the left wing because he's a natural left wing, even though he's a right shot, and he always really has been and played that in the NHL, even when he graduated from the OHL. I think if there's a possibility that he can play on a line with William, I think that's sick. Like that's awesome, and I would love to see that this year. But to put him in these mock lineups to start the year, it's just not going to happen, I think, to start. But fun to think about, and I think he will end up in the NHL at some point this year, but not to start the year. But anyway, let me know what you think of these lines. This is game one. Don't think it'll stay this way. I don't think Cowan's going to stay with the team. I'm not even sure Mitten's going to stay with the big club. He could be sent back to the Marlies. I feel like it could be useful for him to be sent back to the Marlies, right? I feel like the Leafs want some veteran guys up there to start the year. Obviously, they're looking for veteran left wings. I think you find a way to get rid of Camp and you look for a better third line center. I think that's kind of the move right now because the wings look fine if the lineup's like this, but we'll see what Berube has in mind. We have to go through training camp too. Maybe Grabionkin surprises too. He's a big body who can score, right? Like that's music to my ears. So we'll certainly see, but we'll see. I think the Leafs fully intend to use Alex Nylander. I assume you mean he was tearing up the AHL last season. Yeah, he has great AHL numbers, right? And he started tearing it up in Columbus at the end of last year when they finally called him up. So, or I believe it was a trade. Sorry. He's an NHL player. I think he's an NHL player. Just got to put it all together. Maybe now being in Toronto, being closer to William, maybe a little bit more comfortable, right? We'll see how that plays out. So to get to the defensive pairings, which I think is an interesting topic of conversation as well, I think they're almost set, right? And some of this is from Daily Faceoff, by the way. We're not affiliated in any way, but these some of these jerseys were made by them on their website. If you ever want to see what the lineup is for the Leafs that night, definitely go there. I love using Daily Faceoff. Awesome, right? Again, using some of them for the defensive pairings too. I think some of them are already set in stone, but I also put in a fourth pairing, like a scratched pairing, just to see what we're working with. This is my personal opinion. They also signed, let me bring it up for you here. They also signed Dakota Mermis, which I think could be, maybe takes Cade Weber's spot on that fourth pairing, whatever you want to call it. Again, excuse my graphic design that I did in 5 minutes. But this is what I think it looks like right now. Riley has to play with Tanev, and that is your bona fide first pairing. And it's the first time the Leafs have had a really good first pairing in a long time. A long time. And I feel like this is going to activate, nobody's talking about this. This is going to activate a different side of Morgan Riley because Tanev is so good defensively and Riley's not going to have to put up with the Labushkins of the world, or somebody throw another name in the chat. I don't even know who they signed over the last couple of years to play with Riley. Shen was really good, actually. So Shen, let's use that as an example. Shen was a great defensive partner for Riley. Riley went off in that playoffs when they acquired Shen, right? I feel like we're going to have a similar effect this year because Riley's not going to have to worry about Labushkin and not being able to move the puck or anything like that and having to carry that line. So Tanev is going to be able to, and Tanev is great defensively. You know, he's not the most offensively gifted, but he can move the puck, and that was something Treliving wanted to upgrade as well. Love that. Not touching that second pairing from last year. I think it's great. And on Daily Faceoff and some other sites, they have him as the third pairing. They're the second pairing to me. Love Benoit and McCabe. Don't split them up. I think that's interesting, too, about Mitten and Cowan. Maybe they don't make the team together. I think that's interesting. Again, we'll have to wait for training camp or, you know, when they start making cuts and see what that kind of looks like. But I feel like they're going to give some guys opportunities this year, at least to start the year. But, yeah. Here's the other thing. Glad you brought up Timmins because I was going to get there. So Benoit and McCabe wouldn't split them up. OEL, love that signing. Love the fact that he's on the team. Third line. Liljegren, no idea what's going on with that. Puzzling signing. I was puzzled when they signed it in the middle of the summer. Nick and I were live on stream when it happened, and we were like, what is going on? I thought that they signed him to that to make it easier to trade him. Hasn't been the case. They have not traded him. Not sure what that is about. But anyway, for now, because he's the only real NHLer with experience in the depth chart, I should say, or in the system, he'll be on the third pairing with OEL. might be a good mix. Yeah, OEL is going to be a 5'6" defenseman. I think that's fine. I actually think we'll see. They'll probably give it to Morgan Rielly, but I thought he was really good as the power play quarterback for the Florida Panthers. OEL, that is. So we'll see what happens there. I've been on record saying this summer I think OEL starts on the power play as the power play quarterback. We'll see how that plays out in training camp. I think that's a thing that they're going to trust him to do. So he'll go with Liljegren. I like Cade Weber. I think they should give him a shot. I feel like he should be the first one to kind of slot in if there's an injury on the left side. Niemela, I think, has been really good in taking strides in the AHL, so I put him there for that reason. I feel like he has to kind of come up and play at some point. They have to give him NHL minutes to see what they have in that player, so that's the other reason I put him there. Now, Timmins, another right-shot defenseman who has been kind of that 7th defenseman or 8th defenseman for the last couple of years. Glad you brought that up, Shane. A Kyle Dubas signing, and he's kind of been in and out of the lineup, and he's been in the lineup only when there's injuries, only because he's signed. I feel like they're going to find a way to move this player. He makes a little bit too much for the fact that he doesn't play unless there's an injury. I feel like they're going to find a way to move off that player. So, also still nothing. Thank you, Landshark. This all would change if Hakanpää was signed, which he isn't yet, and we still don't have too much clarity on that. I'm glad you brought that up because I am so confused on this situation because CJ came out and said, the longer that this goes on, the less likely it is to happen. I'm confused on that because I'm like, the longer that this goes on, the more likely I think he is to sign. I don't know. I really don't know at this point because if you saw something early on, if you're the Leafs doctors, right, and their medical team, and you saw something early on that kind of threw you off, we're cutting it off right here, right? It could have been like a weekend. We're cutting it off here. The fact that we're this far into it and training camp starts in 2 weeks, and they're still working through it. They want to sign this guy. They're still working through it. I feel like they're getting closer to signing him. So I don't know. It's puzzling. The fact that he was signed on July 1st, or reportedly signed on July 1st, and we still haven't heard anything, and there was no official announcement, is crazy. If Hakanpää there's a lot of stuff that they can do with him. I've seen the stuff about stem cells. There's so many things that they can do with him, right? And if he is good enough to play at least half the season, or he can make a difference in the playoffs, like he's healthy enough to play in the playoffs to the point where he's obviously not looking out of place out there, sign him. I like what he brings, right? I really do. He creates space out there, the intimidation factor. I'd rather him be in the lineup. Again, he has to be healthy, right? He can't be just limping around and obviously hurt. He can't be like that. I like him better than Liljegren in the lineup in the playoffs. Liljegren was obviously targeted, I thought, last year from the Bruins. I feel like they were obviously going after him and dumping it in his corner and roughing him up because they knew they can get to him that way. So I'd rather a guy like Hakanpää in the lineup over Liljegren, at least in the playoffs. Over the course of the season, you can play with things. The Leafs are a good team. They'll make the playoffs. I'm not worried about that. But it's going to be interesting. Now, Joshua says he'd like to see OEL paired with McCabe. I think that's interesting. I love what McCabe and Benoit brought last season. I don't know if you split them up. But again, things can change, right? And we've seen over the last couple of years, Matthews and Marner weren't going at one point. Okay, split them up. And now Matthews and Nylander, they try that for a little bit. They're going all right. And they put them back together and it works again. Matthews and Marner, that is. So sometimes you got to just change things up for a bit. So we'll see what happens. But I love Benoit. I love that signing. I love the fact that they extended him. And McCabe as well. It's been great. So he has no knee cartilage. Yeah, that's a problem as well. It's bone on bone. I've seen that a lot too. Logically, it makes no sense to sign him. But the fan in me is like, I know what he can do, and if he's healthy enough to play, and they deem him healthy enough to play, all aboard. You know what I mean? Like, I want you on my team. But there is so much to that, and we don't have all the details. And the first details that came out were from Steve Simmons, and it was just from somebody within, I think, the Dallas organization, maybe a couple sources in the NHL. Like, we don't know exactly what's going on and what they're testing him for right now, or how his physical went. We don't know. I'm sure we'll find out very shortly. And again, I'm speculating on some of that. I assume that they're waiting for something like that back. I assume they did a physical a long time ago, like 2 months ago, but we'll just have to see what happens. Another great point. I brought up Mermis. I was hesitant to put Myers in this, but Myers, I feel like, is getting a second chance with the Marlies here. I feel like Niemela has been in the system longer and they believe in this player still. So that's the only reason I put him there. And I don't know. it's going to be interesting to see how the season shakes up, but I feel like Myers is absolutely going to be on the Marlies, at least to start, and we'll see how things go through injuries. But I like Myers. He had incredible upside coming into the league. Like, I thought he was going to be an out. I think he was drafted by the Flyers. Correct me if I was wrong. Spent some time with Tampa Bay. Don't have it in front of me, but it's going to be interesting. Now, there's also the Lindstrom rumor, which we covered earlier in the season. Thank you for that, Joshua. On a PTO, I think that's still a possibility. I feel like the Leafs are going to sign a lot of PTOs. We just got the news yesterday of Steven Lorentz as well. I think they're going to sign a bunch of PTOs. I think they want everybody coming to training camp. Come on, let's see what you got. And maybe we make a signing out of it. Or maybe we make a trade to make room for you if we like you, right? So I think that's always a possibility. So, see, Jose, interesting point. And I see this comment a lot throughout the NHL. If they like a player enough and they want to sign him, they will make room for him. They will make a trade. And I feel like David Kemp might be on the way out. I honestly do. And possibly Nick Robertson if it goes long enough. I do. I just have a feeling around that. Now, I think this is an interesting comment as well. And we're going to wrap it up here soon. So if you have any questions or anything about what I think on the Leafs season heading into training camp or anything like that, or any thoughts you have, put them out now. I'll get to them and we'll wrap it up here shortly. But is Stolarz starting in net? I've seen a lot this week, about Stolarz at the end of the year being the starter. I've seen it. I like Stolarz a lot. I do, heading into this season. And I feel like I'm being maybe overly optimistic. I don't know. I think he was great for the Panthers last year. And the argument is, oh, but the Panthers were fantastic. And he still had 8 losses or whatever the argument is. He's a great goalie, right? And he came in for the Panthers when they needed him to, and they still won games with him, right? And those are the hardest games too, the back-to-back, stuff like that. And he put up good performances. I like it. And yeah, I'm not sure Jan Krook fits in the plans either. Good point. That's why I didn't include him in my season starting lineup. But to get back to Stolarz, I like him. I might be being overly optimistic. His stats were great last year. And Joseph Woll, the injury thing, man, I think it's so interesting heading into this year. Can he stay healthy? They're putting an emphasis on keeping him healthy. Brad Living said that at the end of the year. He basically came out and said, our goaltending stinks. Kind of said that. And our goaltending stinks. We need to fix it. We think Joseph Woll is the answer. He gets hurt often. How do we fix that? We're going to look into fixing that. So they're putting an emphasis on that and trying to keep him healthy. And if they can do that, because they did that with Kawhi Leonard, right? As soon as he left Toronto again, he hasn't been healthy at all, right? So if they're working with the training staff here to keep him healthy, load management, maybe he doesn't start 50 games. Maybe he doesn't start 40 games. Maybe he starts 30 games. Stolarz gets 30 games. Maybe Matt Murray, we see him again. He got that hip transplant. He says he feels really good. I compared him to Patrick Kane. People didn't like that. It's not the same hip surgery at all. But I thought Patrick Kane, when he had that hip surgery, I was like, I don't know if he's going to come back and be the same player. And he was great last season. He put together an amazing season in Detroit. So it's going to be, interesting to watch. Like, what happens with that? Does Matt Murray play? Is that their plan? I feel like that's their plan. I don't know what you guys think. I'd still make Wall the starter 100%. I'm just saying I really like Stolarz. I'm not saying he takes over the job. Wall is my guy. And I'll get to why in a second. I'm trying to go through each goalie. But I think Stolarz is going to surprise. I was on the Joseph Woll thing, sorry. Woll, if he can stay healthy, will be the starter. And I wonder if that's their plan, to do like 30-30-20 or something. Like, obviously the math doesn't work out that way, but something like that with Matt Murray coming. Is Matt Murray says he's training again, right? He's on the ice again, full equipment, everything. He can go into the butterfly. I was watching a great interview on Slanging the Biscuit podcast that he was on, hosted by Travis. It was fantastic, and it's good insight into what we're looking at this year. I think Matt Murray could get into games. He played AHL games last year, right? Like he could get into games. I wonder if that is actually their plan, just to keep Woll healthy. In terms of skill, Woll is a starting goaltender to me. And the fact that he talks about stuff like meditation and mindfulness, especially as a goalie, especially as an athlete, speaks volumes to me. And that's why I like him so much. And I feel like he just gets it, and he can be that guy for the Leafs. And he was that guy for the Leafs. Swayman came out and said it. I don't have the exact quote here, but Swayman came out and said the playoff series got harder when Wall came in because he was making all kinds of saves. He was making it harder on me, right? Swayman said he got nervous because Wall came into the series and he was making all these saves. He makes a difference. I think he's a great goalie. So I think he can be a starter as long as he stays healthy. That is the question at this point. Can he stay healthy? And that is a question we have had with a lot of Leafs goalies and players over the last couple of years. So we're going to have to find out this year. We just simply have to watch him play and see what happens. But in terms of skill, I don't think anyone can change my mind. He is absolutely a starting goalie in this league. And again, the fact that he talks about the mindfulness, the meditation that he does, the fact that he doesn't have like social media. He didn't even know that Ryan O'Reilly got traded to the Leafs a couple of years ago. So we'll just have to keep tabs on it. But now I think interesting point about the Leafs being better a couple of years ago. Yeah, on paper, sure. But I feel like they have another year's experience. These guys are getting older. I feel like Matthews is getting, at times I feel like he plays more desperate now, which is good because I see that in McDavid, and McDavid just went to the Stanley Cup final. So I like that in players when I see that. So we'll see. I totally agree with Shane, by the way. I think the best course of action is to give Woll the majority of the starts, and then, Stolarz, obviously, and play with it. Like, it doesn't have to be Stolarz is definitely the backup and gets the second half of back-to-backs. Like, depending on the team, if they have a better save percentage against certain teams, play that goalie then, right? Like, have fun with it because there is no defined starter right now, at least in terms of what the Leafs think and the fan base. I still think Woll is the starter, but we'll see. And you got to name somebody a starter at the end of the day anyway, so we'll see. I don't know if I want Binnington. In terms of skill, yes, Binnington might be a good goalie, but creates some issues on the ice. He likes to start some brawls, so I don't know if that would bode well for the Leafs. I keep saying on different videos and streams, like, the Leafs have to start being the instigators. I totally believe that, and I think that they should. Maybe it doesn't start with the goalie. I don't know about that, but we'll see. And yeah, exactly. To start the year, it's perfect. To start the year, they play the Montreal Canadiens and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Woll and Stolarz, take your pick. Obviously, Woll will probably get the Canadiens game. Take your pick. Whatever. Just play them both those games, and from the rest of the season, keep doing that and see who takes the spot. But I'm glad that they at least have two names solidified, and we're like, okay, we know what we're kind of going to get, unless one gets injured. Which Stolarz has no real history of getting injured, so which is great, and I'm glad. So, and that's the thing, Shane. I totally agree. Like, this is the thing. I feel like people are coming into it with like this mindset that they're going to be mad if Stolarz takes over the starting position. I'm not mad when the Leafs succeed. I don't care who's playing where. As long as they're winning, I'm for it. And this is just like when I show you the lineup and what I think of the goaltending, these are just my thoughts heading into the year. But if somebody's running away with it or a line is a certain way that I disagree with, but they're winning, I am all for it. Fantastic. At the time, I was like, Domi and Bertuzzi with Matthews, kind of weird if you look at it like on paper. It's fantastic. It worked out great. So we'll see. We'll see how this plays out this year. But preseason, the other thing, I don't even know if this is a hot take. I feel like the preseason is way too long. Like, I don't know how many games the Leafs play this year. If somebody wants to throw it in the chat, can't really Google it right now. But I think it's 6 this year. It's still way too long. I feel like you should have like maybe 3 or 4 games with what you think your lineup's going to be. Maybe like 3 or 4 extra guys, and you juggle them in and see what you got in game situation, and then the season starts. Preseason is far too long. I think it goes way too long every year. So, yeah. Florida fans are saying the same thing. Amazing deal for Stolarz and OEL. OEL is more of a gamble. I love the signing. Thank you, Jose. It is 6. It's still too much. It used to be 9. It's way too much. They got to cut that down. I don't want to watch that. I do want to watch it, but I just want the season to start, if that makes sense. Like, I'll watch the training camp and all that, but so many games, and like Matthews isn't even playing. You know what I mean? It just far too long. Or you don't have your actual lineup, is what I should say, and they're charging people to watch it. So pretty interesting. But anyway, yeah, I think Stolarz is great. Everyone can agree with that, and I think he's going to be great. OEL is more of a gamble, and I think it's because he's getting older, and he got bought out, and a lot of people look at that like, is he the same player now, right? And no, he isn't, but he had a reduced role in Florida, and he won the Stanley Cup, and I thought he was a great part of that Stanley Cup win. Quarterback in the power play. I thought he looked great in his role, so give him a similar role with the Leafs, and the Leafs need more offense from their defense, which is something nobody's really talking about. Like last year, like that was a main. McCabe scored in Game 5, I believe, to open the scoring, and I was like, I can't remember the last time the Leafs defenseman scored. They need more offense from the blue line, and he's going to help with that as well. So I think underrated signing. Back half of the contract might hurt. Same with Tanev. The Leafs can get out of it. We've seen it time and time again. They want to win right now. They want to win before 2027, and I think they're showing fans in that way, at least, that they mean business, at least in that way. But again, you got to prove it on the ice. You got to prove it the mental side of the game as well. Hopefully Berube changes some of that. But any last thoughts? We're going to wrap it up here in the next couple minutes. But any other thoughts, you guys have to throw it in the comments. But I think preseason is way too long. Now, Joshua, I'm sorry. Before you leave, I have been neglecting some of the trade rumors because I'm trying to focus on free agency. There is a trade rumor out there. Again, it's just a rumor. Take it with a grain of salt. That Frank Vatrano might be on his way to Toronto. Another left-wing option. I don't know if I would necessarily call him a veteran, so I don't know if he fits into the Leafs' plans that CJ was saying. But if they can get Vatrano in a trade, then maybe, something, maybe camp goes the other way, I think that's something they look at. So from Landshark, a longer preseason means more hockey. Yes, but also with the Marlies sometimes against like another team's full lineup. It's just weird to watch sometimes, but I get why they do it. I do, but I still think it's too long. Shane, I am not here to throw anybody under the bus. All right. And I'm not going to speak for people who aren't here. We're working on it. We're working on the infrastructure to get it going. And we want to make it really good and seamless so everyone has a good time. And it's built in for the season. And we'll get rocking with that real soon. We promise we're working on something real fun for everyone. So to be really connected to us when the season gets going. So thank you for your patience. We are working on something. It's going to be a lot of fun for this season. We're going to have a lot of fun on the channel. So, Stolarz and Berube is enough for me to feel like it's a new team. Honestly, so this is the first year, and I would say probably, I might even say 5 years, where I'm excited to watch the regular season, because for a long period of time there, and I'm glad you bring that up, I felt like I don't care about the start of the season. I don't care. Take me to the playoffs. Just do it again. And I think it was a 22 season or maybe 23 where I almost checked out of the regular season because I was like, we know you're going to make the playoffs. We know you're going to play Tampa again. You have to win. And if you don't win, I don't want to see any of these players on the team anymore. And they ended up winning that. But I almost got to that point. And this is the first year where I'm like, okay, they've addressed a lot of the issues that the team has. Brad Treliving came out and said, I see issues here. I said, totally. I see issues in those ways as well. And he's gone out and tried his best to fix them. Right. So I think that's great. So, it's going to be a fun season. I'm actually excited to watch the regular season. So, would be fun. I'm not going to say that, Shane. I'm not. Well, he might watch this after. So, Frank Vatrano is a veteran. Yeah, no, he could be classified as that. So maybe they're looking at, CJ said that they're looking at left-wing options. I went straight to free agency and was looking at that because Mike Hoffman's there too. I think he might actually be a right wing, but as a left shot, which is I always find is weird. Maybe for the one-timer on the power play, but regular play, it's harder in the defensive zone. But we'll see what happens with that. I think there's a trade coming. There is a trade coming, and I think it includes Nick Robertson, maybe David Camp. And we'll see who it's to, but we'll see. I just want Toronto to stop signing one-year players and then leaving and signing again with somebody else. Yeah, I think last year was a bit it was a bit weird in that way with like Bertuzzi, and obviously Domi re-signed, which was nice. But I think Treliving really walked into a situation where he was handcuffed. That was a weird summer. Man, I think they should have done a lot of things differently, but that's in the past. I don't want to spend too much time talking about that. But 2023, that summer, there should have been a lot of more movement, I think, within the players' management, all of that. So pretty interesting. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you, everyone. Let me know what you think in the comments of my opening day lineup, and I'm sure we're going to have more discussions as possibly Max Pacioretty gets signed. They're obviously looking at him. It sounds like the Leafs want to sign him. It just depends if he wants to sign with the Leafs, right? Like it sounds like he has some other options on the table right now, including Anaheim, Detroit, I heard. So we'll have to see where he ends up. And if it's with the Leafs, sounds like they want to sign him. A little bit puzzling to me. But anyway, I won't be mad if they do sign him. I feel like there's some stuff he can do for the team. We'll keep tabs on that. Obviously, Nick Robertson. I feel like David Kampf is not going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf this year. It's just a gut feeling I have. It doesn't make sense when I look at the lineup with him in it. It doesn't make sense to me. And because I feel like if you move Holmberg down there, it's a perfect spot for Holmberg for what he does. And you make a lot more room in the rest of the lineup. So we'll see. Obviously with salary cap as well. So there's a move coming. There is a move coming. I don't know what day, but it's going to be soon. Training camp is coming. So thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the donation, Jose. Nick and I really appreciate it. It means the world to us. So thank you so much for that. And great conversation here as the season creeps closer. With training camp starting, I think already at the end of next week. I think some of the guys are reporting already. So it's going to be fun to see what happens there and what happens with the lineup. And if Craig Berube can change the mindset of this team, I'm banking on it this year. I'm hoping that happens, but we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.